Welcome back to the video blog. Adam Daniel Mezei is my name. Thanks again for watching. It's going to be 49 Celsius. Very shortly, about half an hour from now, 49 Celsius. Let's see, 50 would make it 50 plus 40, 90 and 18. 108 degrees Fahrenheit. My goodness, that's how hot it's going to be here with the Humidex. But I'm feeling a breeze, so I think the prognosticators are a little bit off. Anyway, let's talk Google+. Let's talk social networks. Let's talk social. Let's talk Google's grand entry into social and how it compares, of course, to the other existing social media networks. For example, Facebook and Twitter. You don't actually need me to say what those social networks are, do you? I think it's pretty clear by now what they are. Anyway, go over to my blog, adamdanielmezei.com. I talked about how Google could possibly be the very next best social network for a lot of different reasons. And yesterday I had the good opportunity to listen to Media Hacks episode 38, which is of course Mitch Joel of Twistimage, twistimage.com. That's his particular 6 pixels of separation. It's under that particular rubric. And the guests on the show, the famous Chris Brogan and Hugh McGuire, they were talking about, the relative merits and demerits of Google+. I'm really bullish about Google+, to the point where I'm, kind of designing some really interesting circles. For those of you who don't know what that is, you can actually create different sorts of groups on Google+, where you can categorize and organize your various friends and fans in ways that they're not necessarily aware of, for instance. So I'm busy creating circles, and I'm looking for friends and people that I know that might be interested, in being a part of the Google+ experience. So if you haven't added me there yet, just go to Google+ and find me at TheRealADM. That's my handle, of course. For those of you who are looking to create a Google+ URL, a unique URL that you can post around, just go to gplus.to, and then you can, of course, customize there accordingly. So, I don't want to get into the advantages and disadvantages of using Google+, because, of course, there's a lot of different sort of things that other people are already talking about. I think that if I were to start to list the various things, it would kind of be a rehash or a repeat of the stuff that you already know and have heard in other places. But I think it's good to kind of compare it to Facebook. There were some really interesting things, for example, that Chris Brogan said. And he said how Facebooks are really fan pages, that is, on Facebook are really kind of inane. Like the thought that you ask somebody to actually fan you. Fan me, please, fan me. The fact that you would actually ask somebody to fan you is kind of sort of weird. It's not really intuitive. It seems so kind of like, I'm not worthy, I'm too cool. I'm so much cooler than you that you have to fan me and add me. Add yourself to my fan page, whereas Google+ doesn't have any of those limitations. What Google+ does best, and I can describe it in words, is it's a very deft combination between Twitter and Facebook. And how so? Well, of course, with Twitter you have the asynchronous follows. It means that I don't necessarily have to follow you if you follow me. But of course, with Facebook, you also have what's known as the threaded conversations. But the problem with Facebook is it's not really viral. You can either be part of the Facebook platform, and if you're not part of it, you can't really take part in those various discussions. But on Google+, you can. The other advantage with Google+, of course, is you get the benefit of the full arsenal of the Google tools. You get Google Places, Google Maps, of course, you get Google Docs and Gmail, and every single other thing that Google offers. And if you're part of Google+, you're now on that particular network. So that's something that you might actually appreciate. That's something that you might consider if you haven't added yourself or been invited to the G+ platform just yet. I'm really liking Google+. I like it. It looks nice. It works really well. I'm seeing a lot of interesting people that are already becoming very popular on Google+. Of course, on Facebook, I'm almost at 4,400 fans. I don't have nearly as much on Google+ just yet, but I'm not spending as much time on it necessarily as I should, although I'm kind of marveling at how, let's say, Larry and Sergey at Google are getting like up to 1,000 different +1 likes when they post like various pieces of information. I'm basically following through on the same sorts of behaviors that I employ at Twitter and Facebook. That means If I find, you know, a link of some kind that I'm kind of really enthused by, I'll post it all around, and on LinkedIn, and on Twitter, and on Facebook, and it'll also be over on G Plus now, so you can chime in and let me know what you think about the stuff that I'm posting over there. So that would be really sort of a nice application, an extension of what Google Plus is. The product diffusion life cycle, of course the curve, we're in the 15% of the early adopters after the innovators. 2.5% of those people are of course the innovators, 15% are the early adopters, about 25% the early majority, 35% the late majority, and the remaining percentage, I think it's around 12 or 15%, of course those are the laggards. And most of the people right now that are on Google Plus count themselves among the early adopters. So we're the cool kids, we're still kind of playing around and getting our sea legs with it, but eventually it's going to be here to stay. So if you haven't added yourself to Google Plus, I am just as bullish on it as Chris Brogan is, and Hugh McGuire, who we all seem to identify the same things about it. And just on that subject of Google Plus, if you haven't checked out any of the metrics for Google Plus, in other words, you don't know how to actually see if it's actually paying off for you, then I suggest, of course, that you take a look at Chris Penn's blog, CS Penn on Twitter, or Christopher Penn, 2 N's on that name, by the way. And you can get a feast your eyes, that is, on some of the kind of analytics that he does with Google Plus, where you can demonstrate to management, if you're a social media person, or if you're in marketing, that you can demonstrate to top management that there's actually some kind of a revenue chain that's associated with Google Plus and the other social networks, all with Google Analytics. Oh yes, yet another particular tool that Google employs in its arsenal that you could, of course, take advantage of, avail yourself of. Thanks again for watching. Yes, we will be going out live now. I will be moving around now with the camera. So if you enjoy this, chime in. And I am completely sleepless for the last, well, we're going on 40 hours again. So if I'm a little loopy, please forgive me. Wishing you and yours and everybody in your little circle of influence the very best of things.